Hey, everyone. Andy Hall. You're watching the Disappointed Cat Morning Show. I've got way too many stories, too much news to talk about. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to cram it in. Um, let's do something funny first. But what are we going to be talking about? Is this the teasing part? The initial minute or two that I talk about the news stories we're going to be covering? I guess it is. Northern Ireland. Who would have thought Brexit would be causing trouble in Northern Ireland? A mosque on a T-shirt causing controversy. The Goon Squad in New York City. Virginia pot, Virginia marijuana, and there's a couple of other stories. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to fit into this 55 minutes, but I'm going to give it my best shot.
A bean pie from the 1920s. Beans, you heard me. Now these took a long bath last night. Good night. Good morning. Time to cook them. Fire! Pastry! Gotta use your fingies. Thank you for cooperating today. Bean rebellion! 2 cups of flour. Yummy, yummy. Simmonyam, mo juice, eggy. How many? I don't know. It just says eggs. Sugar. Oh dear. 4. Did you just kill my blender? Hello? This is personal now. You swung first. Checkmate. Looks horrifying. Let's slow down for a bit. Nothing makes sense anymore. Why are you good? You have a bag of beans in you.
I think if you add sugar and butter, I think there's probably butter in there somewhere. You add sugar, butter to almost anything, there's a good chance, at least there's a higher chance that it's not going to be disgusting. That's what I think. Hey, everyone in the chat, how you doing this morning? Brainbug, how you doing? John Hudson, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that means. I say good for you. Learning stuff new in general is positive. Hey, Tobin Templeman. Simply Secular Dave, not working this morning, Dave, I see. Excellent, excellent. I'm always an advocate of not working, though. The only reason why I work is to get paid, right? That sounds weird, but it's true. For my 9-to-5 job, which I'm still searching for a 9-to-5 job. This isn't work. This is just entertaining me, hopefully entertaining you too at the same time. Jesse Beer. I think I covered everything. And okay, remember Sammy Jenkins. Sammy was here early this morning. Excellent. All right. So my question, I was going through my list, and I have a love-hate relationship with my to-do lists, and this list that I have here, you can't really see it because of the lighting, of all the stuff I have to get done in this 55 minutes. I feel like I'm enslaved to it. It feels like my to-do list, it just has me under its thumb. That's what I feel, everyone. I don't know if you ever have to-do lists that you have to do, that you feel like you have to do. It's necessary. I just responded to Hemet on Messenger from a message 2 days ago that I should have responded to yesterday. Hemet Meta, Friendly Atheist. He's going to come on and do an episode of Best Advice Ever. I should have responded to him like yesterday. I just didn't. I was just thinking about jokes, thinking about the news, thinking about atheism. And once my mind goes off into those areas, it's difficult to come back to actually centering myself and getting stuff done. That's a confession on my part. I'll come to Australia and I'll hire you. Well, that's good, actually. I have to tell you, Sammy, Australia, it's one of those countries that it's like, once everything simmers down, once my kid goes to college, where am I going to travel to? Where am I going to stay? I know I've talked about this before many times. My girlfriend is aiming for Ireland. She wouldn't mind, spending her days in Ireland. She works in biotech, and I guess there's a lot of biotech industries in Ireland. Me, to tell you the truth, I think Australia and New Zealand are probably my gold standards in places where I would want to, I wouldn't say flee, but to travel and maybe spend some of my years. All right. To-do lists. Yeah, man. I fall in love with to-do lists because I think it's going to make me more efficient. And then in the true ADHD kind of way, it's like, maybe I need a to-do list to look at my to-do list. Yeah. You do a working holiday. Indeed. Yeah, well, the thing is, for people who do what I do, if you're in human services, if you serve people who have disabilities, from my observation, we are in need. My girlfriend's also looked into this too. If we are a high need profession, so places like Canada will put us a little bit higher. You know how Canada has the point system for people who want to emigrate there. People who want to live there. So if you work in human services, if you work in a field like I work, they will give you a couple of more points because no one wants to do the kind of work I do. All right. Enough about me. Let's do some memes. Do something to laugh, because we have stories. We have news stories to look at, which are no laughing matter. That's why we need to laugh, right? Okay, so this is a deep cut. This is, if you like this movie, if you've seen Ingmar Bergman's classic film, Ingmar Bergman's King Kong versus Godzilla. What is that? The Seventh Sign? Is it the Seventh Sign? I think it's the Seventh Sign. I always get that confused with that crappy movie, The Seventh Seal. Or is it The Seventh Seal and The Seventh Sign? I think it might be The Seventh Seal, to tell you the truth. That's the Bergman's movie. Someone in the chat who knows more about film history than I do knows about that. But this is right, Dave. I actually saw that movie. Well, I saw, of course, King Kong versus Godzilla recently, but I saw the Bergman movie years ago. And the Bergman movie that comic is referencing is, of course, the movie where the knight comes back from the Crusades and he's playing in Denmark, I believe. And he plays chess with death through the entire movie. It's an exceptional film. And I got to see it on the big screen too. This is back in the day. It's exquisite. All right. Next funny thing. It's stupid. Do you want me to wear a normal condom or a ribbed one? Ribbit. So we go from the highbrow humor way up here, the Bergman King Kong versus Godzilla, down to ribbit. And here's the last one. Here's the last funny thing. Kids today are soft. I died once when I was 5, and my mom told me to walk it off. That's some truth in that. There is some truth. When I have injured myself, my parents are pretty much, you're doing fine, Andy. You're doing fine. Now that principle did not hold when I cracked my head open when I was like maybe 10 years old. I had to get a couple of stitches in the back of my head because there was so much blood. As soon as you cut your head open, you break the skin, there can be a lot of blood. So they didn't tell me to walk that off. They sent me to the hospital. Oh, here we go, John Hudson. To-do list, like paint the house, plant a garden. Yeah, just hang out, man. There's I feel like I can do like bursts of energy, like a lot of I fall in love with my to-do list, and then it's like, man, I think I've had enough of that crap. Right, Sammy. I have ADHD too, Jess. I also love to-do lists, but never get to do the do bit. Indeed. I hear what you're saying. Sammy. Well, you know what I find, John Hudson, I don't want to bring the party down too much, that my anger actually does allow me to focus quite a bit. This little simmering of anger allows me to focus on the things that the anger wants me to focus on. This is it, right? Right. And Jesse Bear, to-do lists for someone with ADHD, just a list of broken promises to yourself. Oh, well said. Well said. All right. So what did we do? We did the initial funny video. We did a couple of funny memes. Talked about Ingmar Bergman. Me cracking my head open. And what's the first? Oh, the mosque. The mosque on a t-shirt. You know, thoughts and prayers, deeply held feelings about entities that don't exist. They're gonna mess your brain up. Links in the description below to all the stories. Kenya, Lamu Mosque, anger over t-shirt worn by Jay-Z. It appears the people who run the mosque don't want images of the mosque on their t-shirts because they could go into because those t-shirts could go into unholy places. And now I just want to, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I was working on a joke just now in my mind. I'm just going to go to the story and then tell you about the joke afterwards. The US-based designer has apologized for using a portrait of historic mosque in Kenya's island of Lamu on a t-shirt worn by celebrity Jay-Z, an official in charge of the site has told BBC. Riyadh Mosque's leaders had objected to the t-shirt as it could be worn to sacrilegious joints like bars. We have accepted the apology letter because it was done in good faith, the mosque official said. Designer Zeddy Loki reportedly produced the t-shirt to promote Lamu. The BBC has contacted him for comment. Lamu is a UNESCO-listed World Heritage Site, and the 19th century mosque is a top tourist attraction. Worshippers became angry when they saw WhatsApp group photos of US-based music mogul Jay-Z wearing a t-shirt with a print of the mosque. So yes, they got upset that there is a t-shirt with a mosque on it that Jay-Z was wearing. And I'm going to tell you this. And now I'm in a deeply committed relationship with my girlfriend. For some reason, I want one of those t-shirts, and I want to film some kind of a whole montage of me being sacrilegious. I don't know if that means teabagging the Quran, one of my Qurans I have. I don't know if it's engaging in gay sex with having the t-shirt on, but I feel like that's a challenge. That's what I feel like. People are angry about this and thought the officials running the mosque were involved. It prompted him to write a public letter to Mr. Loki, the chief executive officer of clothing design company Bilk Bird Jeans. The letter said the worshippers actually feel insulted. They feel insulted by the photos of Jay-Z wearing Bilk Bird Jeans t-shirt portraying our Riyadh Mosque. Rest assured, we neither consider it an honor or privilege for the historical mosque and the founder, Habib Swaleh, the letter said. It added that when wearers of these t-shirts end up in bars, clubs, at all sorts of sacrilegious joints, then it was an affront, I tells you, to those who revere the mosque. Mr. Badia said he had since received a letter from Mr. Loki promising to remove all inappropriate portrayals. Yeah, I want to get one of these. I want to get a image of the mosque. I want to print it. Maybe make. Can you print condoms? Can you put designs on condoms? Because I think that would be pretty cool too. Of just putting. And a lot of you may be saying, "This is infantile, Andy. What's the sake? What's the purpose of just irritating people with their deeply held thoughts and feelings?" Well, the thing is, let me tell you something. I'm just exercising my free speech right there, right? And also, these kind of thoughts and feelings, if these people, anyone, whether they're Christians or Muslims, if they had a chance, as we have seen many times, they would stop writing letters and start enforcing their will on us. Check out the chat. I'll have a t-shirt and ribbed condom waiting when you come to Australia. Excellent, excellent. Well, this is it, Brainbug, right? How dare you provide free advertising for our tourist dollars? Indeed. Everyone makes out on this deal. The person who made the t-shirt, the mosque, because I've never heard of this mosque before. Everyone makes out on that deal. No, simply Secular Dave. Infantile Andy. Good. I'm glad you like it. Oh yeah. Well, you should. We should just make condoms with the picture of the mosque on it. Irritating. Just agitated by that. Anger is an energy. It is anger and caffeine. I say that those are two of the things that probably have helped me focus over the years. Anger and caffeine. All right, so that was the first story. Oh, so if you have noticed, there are many people from Commonwealth countries like Canada, Australia, New Zealand. They happen to be in the chat, right? They happen to be in the chat because I like talking about what goes on internationally and Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland. It has been a topic I like referring to many times in the past. Whenever there's a Brit that comes on the channel, I always like to ask them, so what's going on right now with this whole thing about Brexit and the effects on Northern Ireland and the peace walls? And oh my God, if you don't know about the peace walls in Northern Ireland, they are real. They were put up to basically cordon off sections of Catholics away from the Unionists, away from the Protestants. And the thing is, one of the big issues about Brexit, Britain leaving the EU, of course, was the border. The border. For those of you too young, or you may not know this, there was the time of the Troubles in which the Unionists and the IRA, well, Catholic militia groups were fighting for 30 years? And thanks to Bill Clinton and everyone involved, and of course, money, the tensions had decreased greatly. Now, the thing is about Brexit is that it reawakened tribalism. And now why would it do this? And this is a very brief analysis of the situation, is that right now, Northern Ireland has an open border with the Republic of Ireland. The border, the de facto border between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK is in the ocean. And this has created predictable problems, my friends. This has created predictable problems. Breathe, Andy. Let's just do the story. Less torched in more Northern Ireland violence as British and Irish leaders call for calm. Trending on Twitter this morning. That's how I first found out about the story. Dublin, Ireland. Parts of Northern Ireland saw their 6th consecutive night of violence Wednesday as Unionists and Nationalists clash with police and each other. Unrest first broke out last week amid rising tensions relating to Brexit and Unionist anger over a decision by police not to prosecute leaders of the Irish Nationalist Party, Sinn Féin, for allegedly breaking coronavirus restrictions during a funeral of a former leading IRA figure. In West Belfast, on Wednesday, rioters clashed with so-called peace line. Let me say that again. In West Belfast on Wednesday, rioters clashed along the so-called peace line dividing predominantly, that's a wall. That peace line is a wall, a series of walls dividing predominantly Unionist and Nationalist communities, with police struggling to close a gate designated to separate the areas. My God, why can't they just call it what it is? It's a wall, a peace line. Yeah, it's a wall, and they were trying to close the wall to separate the two groups. A bus was set on fire on Lanark Way near the junction of Shacklee Road, police said. Photos and video of the scene showed youths on both sides of the gate throwing projectiles across, including petrol bombs. Was all of this predictable? Was all of this predictable? I was a driver before COVID started. I was a driver, and I drove people back and forth from the airport, and occasionally I'd have some Brits in, some and there were more than a few Tories. There were definitely some people I drove around that were pro-Brexit, and I would always ask them casually, so what do you think about Northern Ireland? And they would, older white guys, they go, like that, and they'd be like, sort itself out. Basically, that's what they said. And it's like, for an older person like yourself, this is what I thought. I couldn't say it because these people were tipping me and I was working. It's like, for someone who has seen the trouble firsthand, that's a very cheeky way of just kind of writing off the troubles. All right, let me continue. Tensions have been growing in Northern Ireland since the UK voted to leave the European Union, creating the potential of a border between British-ruled North and the Republican Ireland in the South, which remains in the EU. The lack of a border had been seen as a key element of the post-1998 peace that followed 3 decades of sectarian violence. Under the Northern Ireland Protocol of the Brexit Withdrawal Agreement, a de facto border was created in the Irish Sea, with goods entering Northern Ireland from mainland Britain subject to EU checks, a move which angered unionists who have accused London of abandoning them. I think, and this is just my thoughts about it, is that there are probably a fair amount of people in London who would just like to forget about Northern Ireland. That's Speaking to CNN, the Democratic Unionist Party MP Sammy Wilson called for Johnson, that's the PM, Prime Minister of the UK, to tear up the agreement which breaks up the United Kingdom. And it does. It does break up the United Kingdom in a lot of ways. Tear up the agreement which breaks up all the promises you made to the people of Northern Ireland. Last month, the Loyalist Communities Council, oh my God, with a name like Loyalist Community Council, that can't be good. That's like the Oath Keepers or the Oath Enforcers. A group of unionist paramilitaries said it was withdrawing its support for the Good Friday Agreement, which ended the Troubles, while the LCC said opposition would be peaceful. Yeah, that's not going to happen. The letter said the groups would not rejoin until our rights under the agreement are restored and the Brexit Protocol amended to assure unfettered access for goods, services, and citizens throughout the UK. It's a dumpster fire. It's a dumpster fire. And it's not going to get any better. Well, it will get better. Maybe, possibly, but it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. All right. All right. They need to make Math Pig their prime minister. I'm not on his channel enough. I should check that out. To the wealth of the commons, Sammy Jenkins, indeed. To the wealth of the commons. Hello, Scott Duke. Glad to see that you're here. Oh, thank you for mentioning about hitting the thumbs up, Tobin, on this video. That's great. So Northern Ireland, it is something that, and of course, I'll say this again, back in the day here in the Boston area, there would be at many Irish, at Irish pubs, some Irish pubs, there would be the jar. There'd be the jar, which would be money for the IRA. You just go in, or some people would just go in and just, donate to the IRA. Hopefully it's a different Boston now and we won't see that kind of stuff happening. All right. Well, that's the thing too, right? A lot of people don't understand the innate conflict between Proddies and Catholics. And in places like in Northern Ireland, you can see it. If evangelical Christians ever took control of this country, you would find out very quickly. The United States, most citizens who are unaware of this would suddenly find out that Catholics aren't Christians. At least that was what a lot of evangelicals think. Are they Christians? Well, maybe they are, maybe they're not. But once they get in power, it's like, no. All right. What are we doing? It's like 24 minutes. Should I do the halftime show already? So just to go over the basics, we do an open room after this show is over. The show closes down at 9:55. The open room opens at 10 o'clock. So we can talk about anything you want to. The link for the open room, in case you want to come in and participate, is in the description below. Let's do halftime show. Hey, Math Pig, you and my fictitious god. It's like you mentioned his name, and there he is, Math Pig. He just arrives. All right, halftime show. And James Henry, just like that. People just appear out of nowhere. Sean, glad to see that you're here, sir. Just in time for the halftime show. And we just talked about Northern Ireland. If you want to discuss about oh yeah, well, here it is, right? Jesse Bear. Yeah. Where is Jesse? Growing up, I was told them non-Catholic Christian friends that I was not. Yeah. There is definitely an undercurrent in the evangelical community that Catholics, not really Christian. Hey, Phil Lister. So we were just talking about the Northern Ireland problems, the predictable Northern Ireland problems due to the idiocy known as Brexit. Blazing, how you doing, Blazing? Brushing my teeth while watching it. I'm glad I'm part of your dental hygiene regimen this morning, Lee Spanner. All right. Let's do the halftime show.
Waddell was a baseball player at the turn of the century. He was a dominant force on the pitcher's mound, but that's not why he's a hero to me. He was one of the best at his position, but he'd often cause some friction, cause he'd leave games to go fishing before they hit the 7th inning. If a fire truck drove by, he'd run off the field to see it, and if a dog was in the stands, he would wander off to meet it. He had a wicked curveball and maybe ADHD, and all of that adds up to why he's who I wanna be. Cause sometimes you need to pet a dog, sometimes you need to catch the fire truck, even though it's not your job. Sometimes it's better to go fishing when they say you should be pitching. And it's okay, it's okay.
That was our halftime show, ladies and gentlemen. I thought that was good. I learned something new by that halftime show too. MathPick has some excellent videos about Northern Ireland. I'll have to catch him. Take a look at him. Remember, Sammy Jenkins. Let's see. Here we go. Well, James Henry. Yeah. Well, the same, and I know that we've talked about this, I think during Jenga or during one of the many rants, is that the same problem that Northern Ireland has is the same problem of the West Bank, is that there is a colonial power that has colonized a section, that has colonized an area, and that is just going to create long-term problems. Yeah, right, Jessette? How cool is that? How cool is that? Sometimes you just got to pet a dog. Sometimes you just have to chase a fire truck. All right, everyone. So many things to cover. We went over Northern Ireland. We went over the mosque in Kenya, who doesn't want its image on celebrity T-shirts because they could be sent into bars or sacrilegious areas. Links are in the description below, everyone. What are we going to talk about? So many. I have, my complaining about my to-do list is that sometimes my to-do lists are too big. And this is the case with this morning. We're going to have to talk about the Goon Squad. Links in the description below. NYPD Goon Squad manual teaches officers to violate protesters' rights. Who would have thought that in the United States of America, that the police would have manuals on how to violate protesters' rights? Exclusive. Internal NYPD documents shed new light on the Strategic Response Group, or SRG, the heavily militarized police unit behind the crackdown on George Floyd protesters. It's shocking. It's shocking that the police would have manuals or have special units just out there to crack heads of protesters under the guise of terrorism, fighting terrorists. This is an exceptionally long article, everyone. Links are in the description below. I'm going to try to do this justice. I'm going to make an attempt. All right. In the days following Floyd's death, second paragraph, and then again during protests last fall, New York police arrested hundreds of people, many with no probable cause. They pepper sprayed protesters and struck them with batons, trapped them in the streets with no way out, pushed them on the ground, and shoved them with bikes. Who makes bikes a weapon? That's That's so wrong. In Brooklyn on May 30th, an officer pulled down a man's COVID-19 mask and pepper sprayed him at close range, bragging about it to fellow officers, but failing to provide the man with medical assistance as required by police regulations. Days later, another officer in Brooklyn struck a protester in the back of his head when he was complying with orders to disperse, causing a gash that required 10 staples. And in the Bronx on June 4th, police in riot gear corralled hundreds of people before an 8 p.m. curfew, then beat and arrested them under the watch of the department's highest-ranking uniformed officer, Chief of Department Terrence Monahan. They have, before I get into this more into the article itself, they have this strategy when we talk about doing evil with bicycles. I mean, leave it to the police to do evil with bicycles. They have this strategy called kettling. Am I going to be talking about the kettle shocked World War II German strategy? I will, because things do. It's funny how you talk about authoritarians. A lot of things do boil back down to Nazis in World War II. All right, I'm just going to say this. So this police department, the Goon Squad, have this strategy of encircling like a group of protesters in the kettle, right? It's a kettle. And they barricade them in with their bicycles so that people can't escape the area. And then they just beat the crap out of them. And then they arrest them. And this kettling technique is similar to the kettle shocked, which the Germans would, in World War II, they would surround an enemy, create pockets, and then destroy the enemy. Kettling, kettle shocked. When you think about blitzkrieg, that's what it actually is. It's kettle shocked. You surround the enemy. You let your infantry come in, beat the crap out of the enemy, and then you go off to do the same thing somewhere else. All right, enough of World War II history, Andy. Equipped with state-of-the-art riot gear and heavy weaponry, as well as its signature fleet of bicycles and combat armor-clad riders, the SRG, a voluntary unit, attracted cops looking for more action, many with lengthy misconduct records. Since 2015, SRG officers have met peaceful protests with violence, failed to intervene as far-right activists assaulted counter-protesters, and participated in the fatal shooting of an unarmed man. The NYPD documents, which detail a clear chain of command in protest situations, also underscore how top department leadership, rather than road cops, bears responsibility for police actions during the protests, including decisions to kettle people and resort to mass arrests. The Civilian Complaint Review Board received more than 300 allegations of police abuse in connection to the protests, and dozens of New Yorkers offered hours of harrowing public testimony about police brutality. I'm going to check this. I'm going to breathe a little bit and check the chat before continuing the story. Yes. I remember a few years ago, this is from Phil Lister, Swedish police in a holiday in New York halted a confrontation. And yes, Swedish police were able, and I know the incident that you're talking about, they were able to de-escalate a confrontation, right? De-escalate, not beat people down, but de-escalate the situation. Oh, all right. It was on a subway train. I saw the video, Phil Lister. Whenever I think about how police should be doing their work, whenever I think about what I've used dealing with aggressive and agitated people who have disabilities, that's the same kind of stuff. De-escalating the situation as against you just going in. Oh, all right. Back to the story. Let's see. Where are we? All right. We just covered that. There we go. During the June 4th incident in the Bronx, SRG officers used bicycles as weapons in what Human Rights Watch later described as a planned assault on protesters. In public testimony to the Attorney General's office, demonstrators described what happened when the SRG bike squad mobile fence line advanced. The officer right in front of me gave a command. They raised their bikes and rammed into me and all protesters in the front. testified Sammy, I'm going to pronounce it Sammy, I'm sorry, Disu, an adjunct professor at John Jay College, adding that he was pepper sprayed during the incident. In another class action suit, obviously there's a bunch of class action suits, attorneys are seeking damages on behalf of a potentially enormous group of plaintiffs, including all people arrested between May 28th and June 6th, as well as all people who have been or will be subjected to NYPD's practices of violently disrupting protests. And in its own lawsuit, the New York State Office of the Attorney General has called on the courts to install an independent federal monitor to oversee the NYPD's policing tactics at future protests, as well as a declaration of the tactics deployed last summer were unlawful. A federal judge has temporarily combined the lawsuits. So there is an attempt of trying to get the feds in to at least monitor these people. Of course, the solution to it is to disband the goon squad. The solution is having civilian oversight of the police department, local civilian oversight of the police department, because we can tell that you can't trust the feds, right? The government changes every 4 years. The government in Washington can change every 4 years. So the solution is a local group of civilians taking a look at the police department, third-party auditors coming in, taking a look at their records, at their policies. That's the solution. And of course, lawsuits. Just make them bleed money. Yes. Little James Henry. Yes. Yes, exactly. The suspect was apprehended swiftly without violence. Yeah. Well, sure. You have to be able to defend yourself, right? I mean, using pepper spray for self-protection, but the police, uncontrolled police with what? The immunity, who are immune from prosecution. You let someone who's prone for violence, racist, give them immunity for their actions, and they're going to do what they want. All right. I'm just checking out the chat, everyone. All right, I think we're up to that. What? Corruption in a law enforcement agency? Say it isn't so. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, Tobin. Yeah, I do stuff on Patreon, right? I do. What I find difficult is doing everything. And this is what, more than one person in entertainment has said. And I don't want to invoke Louis C.K., but I guess I'm going to say Louis C.K. is that when you're doing comedy, you have to be good at everything, basically. You have to be a good performer. You have to be a good writer. You have to be a good editor. You have to be good at filming. It's actually, and especially in this space, that I spend a fair amount of time reading up about atheism in general, as well as working on my performance skills here, as well as writing crappy jokes. Well, there is data to show what actually forces or makes cops behave more. And I believe if a police department has over 30% minority officers, then that, statistically speaking, helps the police department from being just a big bag of dicks. Freakonomics podcast, everyone. One of the many things I listen to. All right. What am I doing? Let's see what the next story is. Oh, COVID minister. Before we do that, I'm going to share, I think I'm going to share a video. No, let's talk about the COVID minister. Let's talk about this article from the Friendly Atheist. COVID denying minister wearing face masks means promoting a secular religion. Oh, my friends. Links in the description below. For months now, we've been talking about COVID denial, the COVID denial of Pastor John MacArthur of Grace Community Church in California. This is the person who openly celebrated the lack of social distancing and face masks in his congregation, once telling a packed house, the good news is you're here, you're not distancing, and you're not wearing masks. In August, he falsely claimed there's no pandemic. And then, of course, in October, there was an outbreak in his church. The LA County Department of Public Health confirmed 3 cases have been traced back to his ministry. The number grew larger. So the minister of Grace Church, has gotten himself into some legal issues, and he has quite the defense for why he does what he does. MacArthur, of course, denied the seriousness, basically writing off just a handful of positive tests in a congregation of thousands. By mid-November, whatever temporary restrictions the church had instituted were gone. Let's see. Right now, third paragraph. Now that the denial is going even further, the church is currently battling the LA Department of Public Health, which has banned them from meeting indoors and demands that they respect social distancing guidelines if they meet outdoors. This, to MacArthur, amounts to Christian persecution rather than life-saving measures. So he's fighting in court. So what have we heard so far in this story? They're Muslims with the church, with their mosque in Kenya, are stating, for all intents and purposes, religious persecution, right? Their own deeply held feelings, faith-based feelings, are being assaulted due to T-shirts with their mosque imprinted on it. And now, of course, we have the Christian version of persecution, where it's all about the masks. We can't, if you make us wear masks, it's Christian persecution. So here's how he's justifying. I'm just going to bump down here. Here's how he's justifying his actions against the LA Department of Public Health. Grace Community Church regards the wearing of masks in worship, first of all, a matter of conscience. And since we are forbidden by the teaching of Christ not to make extra biblical religious rules that bind men's consciences, we neither mandate nor forbid the wearing of masks of worship. Now, many of us are biblically literate here. I believe it was in Romans that Paul tells people that Christians that you should obey whoever's in power in the secular government, right? You should obey those people because God instituted those powers. I forget which verse it is. People more biblically literate than me probably know the verse. But yes, part of the selling point of the New Testament, of Christianity, was that, hey, we're kind of passive, right? We're supposed to be kind of passive, at least in the Roman state. And so, yes, Paul basically tells people, hey, obey the government. Why? Why did Paul say this? Is because he thought the world was going to end and Jesus was coming. And all right, let me continue. This rationale for why people should wear masks is pressed on people's consciences, regardless of whether it can be proved statistically that masks safeguard anyone from the virus. This is the lunatic minister speaking, or his statement. And irrespective of the fact that masks can cause other medical problems. But COVID masks have become, in effect, secularism's substitute for religious vestments. Oh, my fictitious God. No one can reasonably deny that face coverings have become the chief symbol of popular culture's sanctimonious devotion to the secular credo. I just want to say that this is Christianity. This is what Christianity does, right? This is what Christianity does. It's like Ben Franklin creates the lightning rod. Local ministers, local reverends are like, if God wants to hit our churches, let him hit our churches with the lightning. All right. He also says the Bible requires face-to-face worship, so making people wear masks at a crowded indoor church service, which is really the least they could do since they're all foolish enough to worship in person right now, would be unjust. Covering the face is a symbol of disgrace or shame. Concealing one's mouth while praising God suppresses the visible expression of worship. The Psalms call to worship are filled with words, tongue, lips, and mouth. Wholehearted worship cannot be sung as intended, unrestrained and unmuted from behind a state-mandated face covering. Religious freedom, yo. That's what it looks like here in the States. Christians, the majority. Well, this is part of their cult, right? This is the part of their cognitive dysfunction, is that they think, yes, they are in the majority, and yet they are victimized. They created themselves. The rules apparently don't apply to them. Well, that's right. The rules don't apply to them, but they wish to enforce their rules on everyone else. Well, this is true. I think it's in one of the Timothys that you're supposed to keep the head covered, right? They ignore that, indeed. Jesse Bear says, the Amish take the passive thing to the extreme. They are filled with issues inside their group, but as a group, they don't mess with any of the worldly things. Well, here it is, Sean, and you hit it on the nail. So if God is so weak and pathetic that he can't hear your words through a thin bit of cloth, then maybe that entity is not worthy of worship. That's right. A bunch of bull crap. Sean, well, we know which preacher will get COVID next, indeed. And this is the kind of person that would get the vaccine without telling people he got the vaccine. Sean, this is a great story. I mean, this is very insightful. My mother was a sheriff deputy in the early 70s. She was one of the first female officers in that department. She wound up being forced out because she tried reporting corruption. That's why you need to have a lot. Like I said, the number that I heard is 30%. You need to have 30% minority in the police department to actually make that department act a little bit less dickish. Oh, hey, Sandy Jenkins, thank you. Thank you about appreciating my crappy jokes. Big bag of dicks, indeed. Well, it's personal experience, anecdotes, maybe not the same as data. Not good data, at least. Hey, purple rhymes with orange. Greetings, sentient beings. All right, I can't. Everyone else is sentient. I guess I'm sentient. I'm guessing that I'm sentient. All right, so what did we cover? It's a good time to review what we've covered so far today. Mosques on T-shirt, not a good idea, or so says Muslims. Some Muslims. Northern Ireland, who would have thought that place would go up like a tinder box after Brexit happened? The Goon Squad in New York City. It's a group of, let's call it, just fascist policemen attacking people and COVID ministers right there. Well, I'm just telling you, James Henry, what the data says. And the data says that if you have enough, at least here in the States, if you have 30% minorities within the police department, then that does create less bigoted policies in the police department. So a mosque walks into a bar. He doesn't say, give me a beer. That's what he does not say. All right, so since we're talking about, let's talk about Matt Gaetz. You want to talk about Matt Gaetz? We haven't talked about Matt Gaetz lately. And let me tell you, on my blog, Laughing in Disbelief, I've taken a good amount of ink or time to make fun of him. One of my posts recently was Teen Vogue cancels Matt Gaetz's subscription. Relatively popular piece. But here's what's going on with Matt Gaetz. Let's take a look. There's a drip, drip, drip.
And John Harmon, the one thing that Matt Gaetz has said about this, which is now provably true, he said this a couple of days ago. He said there would be a drip, drip, drip. That was his phrase, of leaks, more leaks coming out about this investigation. And he's right. The dripping continues.
Yes, and Lawrence, I'd like to actually start this evening by requesting a blanket pardon from you for all future transgressions on this program. Anytime in the future that I engage in any kind of profanity, for instance, on the air, can I get a pardon from you for that in perpetuity?
I can't pardon you ahead of time. That's the thing about the pardon. It only works backwards on what you've already done. And you've been pardoned on this program several times. So,
I think, yes, the drip trips are going on. This is a person who has lived a very seedy and shady life, as we are now finding out. And when you have lived a seedy and shady life, and you have consorted with shady people, like people who are indicted sex traffickers, and I'm not ever going to be in a position of taking unwarranted potshots at marijuana entrepreneurs, but the people that Gaetz has surrounded himself with are not the most savory. The behavior he has engaged in that we know of are not the most savory. And what we have learned most of all in the course of this entire thing is that he has no friends in Congress. Maybe except Donald Trump, although Donald Trump's not even coming to his rescue right now, except in a very, 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 as Jennifer Palmieri points out, very limited way. So it's like he's a guy with no friends. He's a guy whose allies would like to see him go down. A lot of people think he's a ticking time bomb and that he's radioactive. And so in an environment like that, you hang out with shady people, you do shady stuff, you have no friends, and people are terrified that when you explode, you're going to get radioactive goo all over them. What happens in that situation, Lawrence, is a lot of drip, drip, drip. You just let the details tumble out because everyone's interest is to see, at this point, is to see Matt Gaetz go down and go down hard. And that, I think, is what people are now, including people who ostensibly are his friends and allies, are kind of in a loose way co-conspiring to do, is to destroy Matt Gaetz, with obviously a lot of help from Matt Gaetz.
Jennifer, I keep thinking back to Nancy Pelosi and the way she just threw Anthony Weiner out of the House of Representatives. No ethics committee hearing, no nothing, no investigation. It took about 10 days. There were a couple of things that happened on Twitter with Anthony Weiner, these photographs, and she just brought him into the office and said, Anthony, go home, because this party, this House of Representatives, this Nancy Pelosi, I am not going to suffer another story with my name in an article with Anthony Weiner again. You're gone. The Republican Party and Kevin McCarthy don't seem to have the same fear of association.
Or they fear, or they fear their association with Matt Gaetz. I mean, it has also been reported. I mean, first of all, the Republicans always have a lower standard of behavior for their members of Congress and tolerate behavior in their members of Congress than the Democrats never do. That's, that is a very old story. But I wonder, it has been reported that Gaetz was showing photos of perhaps underage women on the House floor to his colleagues. And if they throw Matt Gaetz out, he has the potential to do a lot of damage if he has, in fact, shown these photos, if other members of Congress are involved. So I think they have a very delicate situation to manage for the House Republican caucus. They don't give him any more ammunition.
Yeah, so Matt Gaetz, the drip, drip, drip of information coming out about Matt Gaetz. Yes, James Henry boasted to other Republicans about the crap he was doing. Showed them pictures on the House floor of the young women. The man just is scuzz. Just whatever scuzz is, maybe it's some kind of fungal cheese product that could, you never think that scuzz could go bad, but if there was because it's just bad in and of itself, Matt Gaetz seems to be the embodiment of scuzz. Well, yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice, as against to him getting a Fox News show, for example. The Trump administration, just bouncing off this story, there was an official from the Trump administration who said that they never seriously considered giving Gaetz a pardon like that. Oh, well, Sean, the Republicans, and I'm not saying anything that you haven't heard before, but when you have such kind of repressive sexuality like for evangelical Christians have, when you have this kind of repression, it's gonna bubble up somewhere. Oh, see, hey, there you go. Probably an informal abbreviation of disgusting, probably for that. Yeah. Let's see what else is going on here in the chat. Well, you know what? It would be a rude awakening to find out that everyone wants you to crash and burn. And that's the thing about delusion, right? People who don't have a good grip on information, on how reality works, on their own personal relationships. Matt Gaetz, he should have realized that people didn't like him, right? There should be some kind of acknowledgement. It's yeah, I know. For me, I know that I've irritated people within the community doing what I do on my blog. I know that I've irritated, Christians and Muslims and Hindus. So the idea that maybe my popularity isn't that high, that would not surprise me whatsoever. It would not surprise me whatsoever. Yeah. Be kind of fungus. Okay. I don't want to, let me rescind my previous statement. I don't mean to insult fungus by comparing it to Matt Gaetz. All right. So wow, 55 minutes into the show. I'm going to do my thank you video. Thank you, patrons. Thank you, YouTube members. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you, those of you who hit the bell, who liked the video, who subscribed to the channel. I appreciate that too. I'm going to show my thank you video, and then I'm going to go do the after party show. If you want to be on the after party, the link is in the description below. See ya. Maybe in 5 minutes, maybe less than 5